Hello, I'm Mark Barnard. I'm the Associate Head Coach at Oregon State University, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about practice, the philosophies of practice, what we do in practice, and some things that may assist you in running your practices each day. Okay, so at the beginning of the year when we sit down, the coaching staff, and look at what we're going to do, we like to plan our practices in blocks of 10, and blocks of 10 for us at the beginning of the year probably really meant about a week's practice. We set out a shell of 10 practices of things that we want to make sure that we do in each practice. And then we will meet on a daily basis at least once, twice to go through each individual practice and add exactly what we want. And generally what we like to do in a 10-day plan is make sure that we spend 2 or 3 of the sessions on individual work. So not every single session we do is a team session. We like to break it down and make sure that we spend some one-on-one time or one-on-two time with the players to give them individual work. Now, one of the things that we start to move into now once we've started our season and playing is that we'll start to cut back a little bit on practice. So we won't be going twice a day every day. So now we've really got to look at how do we make the most out of our time in the practice situation. We know now that we'll look at maybe 2.5 hours a day of practice, not 2.5 hour sessions. And we know that in that time there's a few key things we want to achieve. As much as possible, you want to maximize the amount of time that you have in practice. And by that I mean, how much time do you spend warming up with players running in circles, stretching? How much time do you spend with them not really doing volleyball stuff? And I think that for us, we try to plan a practice that, one, involves the players a lot. 2, how do you use the coaching staff that you have? How well can you keep them working with players while maybe you're off on another court working with players? And I think a general framework for our practice most days is we'll spend time early in the practice working on individual skills. We may even break up onto 2 or 3 or 4 courts with the different coaches before coming back and doing small group drills and then possibly finishing with 6s at the end of practice. One of the other aspects is now as we start working through the season is how much do we rest as we move through the year? And a lot of people don't understand that to be a good team at the end of the season is your goal. That's when you want to be winning your matches. And to do that, more often than not, you've got to rest your team as you move through the season. And it's difficult as a coach sometimes because I think you're in the mentality, as are a lot of the players, that you want to spend more time working on things. And I think there becomes a point of diminishing return that the more time you spend working on things, sometimes the less value you get because you're worn out. So let's talk about some of the key aspects of practice that I think you really need to enforce with your athletes. And one of them, and the most important, is competing. And why do we keep score? We keep score because we want winners and we want losers. We want people to be accountable for basically winning and losing and how they're performing in practice. Stats have a very important part of our overall design, simply because we know that to be good you've got to reach a certain level statistically. And so if you can do it in practice every day, you can do it in matches. And we like to reinforce that with the players. So you want to create a successful practice. Apart from the X's and O's, you need to create an environment that the players will learn in and be successful in. You do that by planning, and that's planning with your coaches, and we spoke about that earlier. You do that by being involved, turning up every day with the same demeanour, the players know what they're getting. And thirdly, lastly, and probably the most important, you need to learn. And there's so many coaches out there that coach volleyball differently, and they all do it successfully. Take a leaf out of their book, and you'll be a successful coach, and you'll run a successful practice.